friends or people that want you'd like to also have access to this is you simply just go to acquisition.co/tour live. And then what they'll do is they'll simply select what city we're filming or live streaming from, and then that'll go directly to the YouTube channel, and it's broadcasted everywhere. So obviously we probably could have told you that before we got started tonight, but anyway, you can still look that up for those that want to leverage that.
Will that QR code work?
This is different.
So that'll take you to Acquisition IQ, and then if you go to the national tour, if you scroll down just a little bit.
So it's just, yeah, you'll have to look it up. It's acquisitioniq.co/tour live. You can't find it on that page. I'll have to talk to our IT. Anyway, we ready to roll?
Next time we should have a QR code with the live stream.
I agree.
Just scan and then.
We're getting better. We're a startup, just like everyone else. I'm joking. Anyway, so we good? Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us here at the Acquisition IQ National Tour. We're going to 15 different cities, and this is city 3 of 15. We're just super thrilled to have you guys out here. Honestly, it's been a lot of work in the making. But at the end of the day, we're aggregating investors, entrepreneurs, and M&A service providers to help you walk through your deals. Okay, we're going to be talking about acquisitions. We'll be talking about prepping your company for a proper exit, talking about technology and integration and how that's super important with Socratics today here in San Francisco. And all of the people in this room, we're just super thrilled that you're able to meet and greet with others, because really that's what makes life so rich, is the relationships that we're able to create. For us, we're not super focused on the tactical, we're focused on the relational, and then that will help us create culture. Inside of culture, which is the education, and then which is also, the more education you have, the more you're able to do. And that's what we believe. And when you create environments, just like what you experienced the other day. So let's give this lady a round of applause. She actually came all the way from Sacramento, and she was actually at our last event as well. So if you
Scott came from Reno.
Okay, Scott came from Reno, which was the very, very first place that we kicked off. But tonight we have a wonderful program scheduled. And for those that have questions about the Acquisition IQ brand, we have 2 things as a part of the brand. One is the national conference. The national conference is Acquisition Conference, AquaCon. We looked online and we didn't actually see anything that popped up when I Google searched Acquisition Conference, so we developed it. Acquisition brand, or Acquisition IQ, was created based on a conversation that I had with a mentor of mine who is an investment banker. And he said, hey Nathan, there's a lot of people that come to me and ask me about being bankable, from his investment bank. And I said, well, tell me please all of the questions that are typically asked of you, and I'll create an entire conference and a brand all around all those questions and solve them all. Hopefully, right? Over the course of time and through relationships, which is exactly where AquaCon was born. That was 3 years ago. We started doing meetups just like this in Salt Lake City, and then it built to a bigger conference, which we just held March 21st, which you came to, which was great. But we held that March 21st, had about 200 people out, and now we decided to do this 15 city tour to bridge the gap and to create, because that's what we do. We increase the overall capacity and access to information, which decreases the time that it takes for you to be successful in whatever endeavor that you're about, which is all that we're focused on. So tonight, again, we've got a great program. I want to bring to the stage Tim Eun. And Tim is going to also bring to the stage to the individual who has helped us with securing this space. So Tim, come on up here.
Great.
And then also bring our guest
Awesome.
as
Great.
well. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. Hello, everyone here as well as online. We appreciate you being here, and want to just want to let you know a little bit about what I've been up to the last few years. And one of the big joys of my life has been being part of the on the board of advisors for the Salvation Army. And I want to introduce to you the host today, who's graciously allowed to use the headquarters here, which we wanted to do. is Major Darren Norton, who's a divisional commander of the Salvation Army of Northern California. So please come on up, and we're going to do something a little special that we've never done before, which is we're going to do a pitch. Since we're in San Francisco, we're going to do a pitch of the Salvation Army. If they were pitching for money, how would they talk about it? So I'm going to act as venture capitalist, and Darren's going to be the startup founder, and we're going to talk about the problem, the solution, the product, and so on. So we're going to do that, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So Darren, welcome to AgriCon, and appreciate you coming here.
Yep.
Yeah. So as always, when we talk about Salvation Army, tell me a little bit about yourself and the Salvation Army here in Northern California.
Well, first, welcome to you all here to the Salvation Army facility. This is our headquarters for the services that we provide throughout Northern and Central California. I'm the divisional leader, so I help to oversee all of the Salvation Army's work throughout San Francisco, Silicon Valley.
Hey, what's up, bro?
all the way down,
So,
to the
were you at the front
between.
of the building
So my name
or
is
the
Darren. I
back?
was born and raised in London, England. I've lived in the Americas
Okay,
for
yeah,
30
and it
years,
said
and I've been
call
here in
button,
San
right?
Francisco for 7 years, and I just found out I'm moving. The Salvation Army is moving me to a new assignment in Hawaii. So I don't know if I did something right or wrong.
Okay.
But I'm excited to go to a new post, but it's
Yeah,
been just
yeah,
an incredible
yeah.
joy
If
to
you're
serve
at that
here
picture,
at
they
this
should
community.
answer and they should let you in.
Darren, how long has the Salvation Army been around, and also in San Francisco?
I'll see.
Yeah, Salvation Army
yeah.
has served San Francisco for 140 years. We've been
Okay.
faithfully helping some of the poorest people in the community and helping stand in the gap
Okay.
for families and
Huh.
people in
Okay.
need,
Well,
providing a whole
they're
range of
in
programs
there
to help
doing
people.
their thing real quick, but
And what's this
And,
new
I'll
product
try to
you're
make
coming
sure
out with?
that
This new
there's someone here,
thing called
okay.
the Way Out, I think it's called. Can you tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
that?
No,
Sure,
you're good.
When I came 7
No,
years
I
ago,
get it. I get it.
The homeless
All right,
crisis
we'll
on
talk to you later.
was really
Bye.
at kind of epidemic level, and I was just shocked by that. I'd seen a lot of homelessness before. I was in San Diego before, but when I came here, I saw a deeper level of the crisis with the concentration of people really revolving around drug use and availability of drugs. So it wasn't just regular homelessness, it was really a deeper thing with mental illness too. And I just felt the Salvation Army, after 140 years, we have the size and the structure to really step into that. So we created an initiative called The Way Out. And we started to work, what are the solutions, what are the problems, and how can the Salvation Army use all of our resources to help provide a way out for people on the streets.
All right, so let's get to it. We're going to do Shark Tank here. So Darren, tell me, what's the problem that you're solving with the Salvation Army through The Way Out?
Well, there's 8,000 people that are homeless in San Francisco. 4,000 of them are unsheltered homeless, meaning they live and exist on the streets or in shelters as well. And so we wanted to step in because we care about people. We have a deep sense of compassion and dignity and respect for people, and belief that we have a solution to help the city with the crisis.
Great. So we're talking about folks with mental and drug problems,
Yep.
right? Right.
Mhm.
And when they ask for help, what happens?
Well, we come alongside them to help them get
What is
off the street.
Let me ask you, what is currently being done without the Salvation Army? What's the issue here?
Yeah, well, the city's efforts are around harm reduction,
yeah.
housing first. It's one solution,
Yeah.
getting people off the street and putting them in their own
Yeah.
apartment. But the problem is if you don't address the internal needs of people, the addiction issues, the mental health issues, then we believe you're taking someone that's hurting on the street and now they maybe have a roof over their head, but they're still hurting.
Right.
They're still depressed, lonely, still addicted to drugs, and still living a life that we don't believe is a caring or compassionate life.
Great. And so how do you think about the solution here?
Yeah, so the Salvation Army, we approach it through a recovery aspect. We want to address the recovery needs of people, the addiction. And so our solution is really to address, to provide treatment, to provide detox, to provide extended living, so people have case management, access to work development and skills, living in community and transformation, so that people can regain their lives and exit homelessness for all time and live a healthy, productive life.
Great. And so what's the product that so if the solution is to do that, what's your product?
Well, the product is the programs that we offer. It's expanding shelter beds and treatment beds with the programmatic support that the Salvation Army offers and giving people hope of a way out. And so the product is how can we expand the network of beds that we have so that we can help more people to get out of the streets and into a new life.
Great. And tell me a little bit about the traction that you have. What kind of traction do you guys have in this program?
Yeah, we started with a pilot program. We wanted to test the numbers. We wanted to see if we offer a longer term care for people. So we started with 10 beds, and we found good metrics from that. So then we were able to open a new facility with 96 beds. And so we were able to expand that from our treatment program. And so we're finding a 76% success rate, people going through our program off the street, through detox, through treatment, through our transitional program. 76 people are leaving housed, employed, and clean and sober. And we see that as really success metrics that no one else in the city is matching that. And it's really helping people recover their lives, and we're finding people on a new path to life.
And so, what does success look for you, and what do you want? What are you asking for?
Well, we have a 3-year plan. We have finally got help from the city to expand. And so we've gone from about 140 beds 2.5 years ago. We went to 250. And now by the end of this summer, we'll have 500 beds. The Salvation Army needs to raise over the next 3 years about $12 million over 3 years to help support, strengthen, and the program further. We've got the city funding about 75%. We need private philanthropy to fund about 25%, which we estimate is about $12 million. So we're working on a campaign to try and see how we can get donors and folks to help us expand this incredible program by investing in the work that we're doing, changing lives.
Awesome. So one last question. Tell us about your angel investor. Who's your largest angel investor?
Well, 2 years ago, I was able to get in front of Mark Benioff.
Awesome.
We pitched the program, and right there and then he gave me $1 million to help seed fund the program, to help test it.
Amazing.
And to prove the concept that we knew we believed in. And so he said, go take that $1 million and go get matching funds for it. So we were able to go to our top donors. We got another $1 million. And so that's really what's helped to seed fund this initiative, and we're just growing from here.
Well, that sounds like a great pitch.
Thank you.
So hopefully we'll get some additional investors to come into the fund here and to support the Salvation Army. Thank you very much, Darren.
Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
Thank you.
So speaking of funding, doing a national tour isn't cheap. You know, actually, you got to go every event venue. You got all the food, you got all the drinks, you got all the people. It's crazy. But you've got to have your partners and sponsors to be able to help you along your way. And I've got one gentleman here I want to introduce to you guys. His name is Scott Castleman with Castle Solutions. He's been in the IT space for over 25 years and extensive knowledge as well. So I'm just going to open the floor for you here for a quick discussion on what you do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Castle Solutions looks at a process that I've learned over the last 35 years. I've worked in real estate for 5, which was so much fun. But the other 30 was in, sometimes I felt like jail. It was technology, it was consulting, it was working with clients of all sizes, largest being over 100,000 employees, over 73 countries, and the smallest two founders. And what I've realized is if you're not having fun, you should probably change what you're doing. There's a term out there, I don't know if I love it, it's pivot, right? Find what you're passionate, find what you're doing, right? So I'm honestly, as I go through this tour, and Nathan, you know, we've been able to break some bread together, and I'm still really finding out exactly where I'm at, right? And that pinpoint. I know I'm on the dartboard, I know I'm on the bullseye, but as I meet people in this community that Nathan and Lisa are creating, I just feel so blessed and honored to be part of it. So today, we're offering opportunities to join us, okay, as clients. I'm looking for clients today, okay? I got 3 daughters in college. I'm still hustling. I'll give you 4.5 more years. That's all I got left, okay? And I'm going out to the woods. there for some calls even, thanks to Elon Musk, right? We have that kind of technology today. But I believe in Nathan, I believe in Lacey. They have architected what is amazing, and to bring people like the Salvation Army into this, right? It goes from the core of the people and the heart that we have is loving, peace, love, joy, right? Getting rid of the negativity out there and bringing all the people that can walk together, right? Jog together and run together, but the most important thing is the trust. Can you imagine 3 people that trust each other working together? It's amazing things that can happen, and you can multiply the results. So again, I really appreciate you just making me man, I feel just so humble.
Come on, right here.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Well, so thank you, Scott. Thank you for your support, though, for the tour and everything that you're doing. We're going to bring up now Tim, and we're going to get into a little bit of a fireside chat. Tim's got an extensive experience, again, with technology, M&A, investment banking, and we're going to bring that all to light right now. So how many of you guys run a business right now? Can I just get a raise of hands? Okay, we got a pretty good crowd out there for sure. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about what has gotten you to the point where you are today. But let's just preface as to how you got started.
Great. I have a very interesting background, and a lot of it wasn't just me. I was born in Korea, and when I was 5, my father was a missionary doctor for the Presbyterian Church. So we ended up moving into Israel, which is now Bethlehem, which is on the West Bank, what is now considered Palestine, right? And I went to school in Jerusalem. When we were about 11 years, when I was 11 years old, after 6 years, we moved to the United States, where my father worked as a doctor, then as a pastor in Philadelphia. I went to Penn State University, graduated. I thought I was going to be working at the State Department, and I ended up at a bank doing mergers and acquisitions. I don't know how that happened for my liberal arts major. And then I ended up really enjoying what I did, and went to business school at the University of Chicago. Ended up working in financial institutions in many different ways, but primarily in the mergers and acquisitions and corporate development. And in 2010, I decided to make a switch and came to the Valley, where my wife is from. And we ended up originally as just investing in early stage companies as a private investor. And then I went and started to run some of these companies. And over the last 14 years or so, been running venture-backed companies, raised about $70 million in venture capital, about $350 million in revenue at an early stage generated from those companies. And now about 3 years ago, I started my next company, and hopefully the one something that combines my past on Wall Street with technology. So that's kind of where I am now with Socratics.ai. And Socratics.ai, we're just automating, leveraging AI to automate workflows for investment banks, private equity funds, private credit funds. And so ultimately what it was is back in the 90s when I was an analyst, they're doing the exact same thing today. Excel, coffee, and financial models on those. And what we decided to do was, how do we automate that? So that's the goal that we're doing, is trying to take out the execution layer, make it much more effective, 100 times more effective for analysts and for investment banks and anyone dealing with private company financials, where it's very dirty, messy. It could be KPMG could have audited it, or written or done your financials, or your brother-in-law, and be able to take all of that stuff and be able to just take it in and then create beautiful financial statements and financial models that bankers can use at an institutional level. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's where I am today, which is not where my parents thought I was going to be.
It's an interesting story. I know many of you out there, like I was asked before, and then also online, you're in a stage where you have a business, and you might be looking for another business, just like a lady in here today. And where do you start as far as looking for a new business to purchase? And then also, we'll get to Socratics.ai and how you're able to help that, and help the actual acquisition of a business. But share with us how you're getting started, or if you're on your second approach, or identifying your target. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. So there are 2 different questions in there. One is, how do you figure out a target? And it's very different depending on the stage that you're in. So when I was running corporate development at large financial institutions, there are only limited companies in the world that you could look at, right? That really would move the needle. So the last large deal I did was a $20 billion merger of two companies. We were one of the largest insurance companies in the US, and we acquired another insurance company and created a very large insurance company. And that was the investment bankers coming in and bringing us the deals, and then our CEO, getting him on a plane with the other CEO and getting them to talk, and it took years. And finally they said, you know what, we're better together than separate. And it's very, that kind of situation. When I was on the smaller side, when I get out here and looking to do deals, and I'm in more in an advisor role, listen, it's usually your suppliers, it's your customers, it's your competitors. You know your little circle of folks, and you're thinking, around and saying, I really know this space, and how do I go ahead and work in that space and try to acquire a company in that space? So it's a very different mentality depending upon what stage you're in. If you're talking about starting a company, that's a totally different story.
Yes.
And for me, starting a company was very much like, what problems do I see in my life? And after I left my Series C company and started to do my own thing, I had to look for an idea. And when I was looking for an idea, I looked at basically, I was serving as an advisor to several of my friends who said, hey, can you help me out and raise money here or to M&A? And so I just, on the side was just helping folks out, just, pay the bills. And I realized I ran into the problem of, said, hey, Tim, you need a financial model if you're going to send this model over to a buyer. And at that point I was like, gosh, this is exactly the same thing I did 30 years ago. There's got to be a solution to this. And I started to play with ChatGPT and a lot of the AI technology, and it just made sense because it just was my background and really me understanding that market where I just jumped in and was able to find it. So for me, it was combining different facets of my life and bringing it together, and just happened to meet at the right time.
Interesting. So as far as the application to those that are in the room as well, they're looking for an acquisition. Now, can you walk through some negotiations and the potential of term sheets and being able to go through that? So, for example, this does apply to a few people in here right now.
Yep.
And I want you to speak to that as far as the negotiations and then also leveraging a financial stack that can be of benefit for you. So you've been in the private markets and you've seen different financial stacks. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. Now, I would say for a lot of the folks, so we're talking about, let's say, deals under $50 million. Let's talk about that, right? Where a lot of you guys are involved in, call it 10 million, and there's probably an SBA loan involved, right? And so the government does provide financing through the SBA loan program, and I've leveraged that in the past to finance some of my businesses. It's a very, you take personal risk, right? There's a lot of personal guarantees that are involved, but it depends upon how deep you want to go. And if not, then you're going to go hit a venture firm or so on, or try to find an acquisition fund that can supply the capital. But that's secondary. The first one is you got to find a company that you really are interested in. And I think number one is find something that you know. I strongly suggest you find something that you know, or something within the belt. And it doesn't have to be that it's a subject area like the specific space, like I know the food or beverage space. But it could be that I really know marketing, I really know sales, right? And I know that product is not that difficult to understand, but it's a sales and marketing game. Or I'm really good at product development, and really finding the value of saying, hey, that guy did this, or that gal did this, and I can take it from here to there. Because I think a lot of it is you're looking at sort of a multiple return, right? Because if you do the same thing they do, you're going to get the same return that they're going to do, or unless you're looking to cash flow the business. If you want to take it to the next level, what value do you provide? And that's exactly how a private equity fund would look at it, right? You would say, it's going like this. I can borrow money, and there's a little bit of leverage there, but then what can I do to ramp that sale up, right? In terms of get additional product lines, or how do I sell? So I look at it from that perspective. What value can I add as me? And then I also look around my network and say, I can't do it all by myself most of the time. I need other friends of mine that can come in alongside me, that can leverage and complement me to help, and together 1 + 1 = 3, then let's apply it together. Because it's very lonely being an individual founder, individual CEO. It is very lonely, and there are people who do it, and God bless them. That's not me. Yeah. I love to have someone that comes alongside me, and when I get down, they're pushing me, and when they're down, I'm pushing them. I think for me, that's a very, very positive, healthy thing. And so, just my perspective.
Okay, so we need to talk a little bit about post-integration and pre-integration.
Sure.
And developing that relationship that you were able to develop when you, as a large corporation, bought that other corporation.
Yes.
But then also, so let's share to the audience here
Sure.
what has been good
Yep.
as far as that deal,
Yep.
and then also maybe a deal that you've seen
Yep.
where maybe money or greed has gotten involved, because there's also egos that can get involved in deals,
Yeah.
and that can really destroy it. I'm sure you've probably seen that multiple times, not just egos, but personalities.
Right. So there's two questions in there. One is, how do you number one evaluate the company and integrate it in, right? And number one, right? Because that's a daunting task, especially if it's a multi-billion. But even if it's a $50 million company or 10, they're a daunting task because they know more than you, right? They know more than you, and they're selling the company, and you're sitting there. Well, what do I not know, right? And so one of the things I would do is number one, figure out the main reasons, 3 reasons why you're doing this deal. Right? I can increase the sales. Right? Number 2, I can retain more employees, or I can hire better employees. So figure out 3 reasons why you would do the deal, and base a lot of your acquisitions upon that. The other one I do is I look at my advisors and my friends, people who know the business, and say, what are the downsides? How does this go to 0? Figure that the black hole. And I write there in every single black hole it could be, and look it down. And it could be thousands of things, but look at the main things that could take it to 0, as applies to how the business runs. So those are the 2 areas I look at, whether it's a $1 billion deal or whether it's a $50 million deal. Those are the 2 things I look at: is what's the reason why I'm doing this deal, and can I ask a lot of questions and dig into that? The other one is, what can take this to 0? What are the big black holes here? And if you can focus on that, then you can operate.
Purpose and risk mitigation. I think those are 2 things that I just
Exactly.
got from what you just said. And we have some people right now here that are looking for their acquisition, and it's very wise advice. I appreciate that. Go ahead.
The other question you asked me was, tell me about some things that went well, and tell me about some deals that went bad. Right?
Yeah.
I will
always.
tell you, the best deals I found out were friendly deals. Like, there are guys who make like Bill Ackman, who go out and folks like that who are sort of more hostile guys, and God bless them for being good at it, right? That's not me, right? I like to have a trusting relationship with the other side, where I feel like I'm being open with them, they're being open with me. Now, not everything, but as much as possible, build that relationship. And based on that trust, they'll tell you a lot. If they trust you and they believe that you care about getting a good, like a fair deal, the other person will open up with you. I've been shocked at the things that people have told me, and I won't use it against them. And I will not use that against them, right? But I will try to negotiate a fair deal based upon what they do. And as long as I'm honest and they feel like they're doing, most of the time, not all the time, most of them, they'll be honest back. And I think that's a very important thing, is to build that trust. Because if you don't have the trust, it's going to be a tough deal, because you don't know that company, they know the company, right? And so number one is that. I think on the good deals, I think there was trust on both sides. We built trust, and we purposely went out and spent time together, right? Whether it was to go lots of dinners together, spend time in their office, spend time with them, ask about their families, and build that relationship. I think that's very important, and that's my style, right? Secondarily, deals that didn't go well was when we got greedy. I had a company that was doing very well, that I went to China. There was an acquirer in China back in 2013 and 14, and we had the 13th most well-known company in a certain industry that we built from nothing, and they were looking to buy us. And at that time, it was a pretty frothy time. So we're beating our chest saying, we built this great company, and I want X, and they went the other way, right? We're trying to get in cheap, right? And we're trying to get in, and we're trying to take so it ended up being a very nasty type of situation. We were not rude to each other, but clearly from the beginning it was not going to work, right? Because we were asking for the moon, and every time they asked something, we upped it. We said, this is, this is a buyer's market. You want to get into the U.S., then you're going to have to pay, right? And they're like, well, that's not what we do, and hey, we can bring all this stuff to you, and that's not what we do, but we'll give you an exit now. And when you don't have the alignment among what you guys are trying to do, and both of you are trying to pull towards the edges versus making it work, you have an issue. And the people that I'll say, there are a lot of folks that say, don't meet in the middle, right? Sometimes you have to meet in the middle. Not all the time. Sometimes you have to meet in the middle.
We had a speaker at our last Aquacon. His name is David Bradford, and he used to work for Novell. And he was in the midst of negotiations with Bill Gates, because they were wanting to buy Novell for multiple billions of dollars. And David was like, I don't know, I didn't trust Bill Gates. There just wasn't things. There were some things that he had seen, and heard, and also had experience, that he was just like, I don't know. But it was in essence the speed of trust. So you lack trust, speed slows down. And within your deals, it's like if you don't have your, we all know trust is super important, but you don't equate it sometimes to the deal getting done, which then costs you more, right? So the lack of trust will actually cost you more over the course of time. So it was an interesting correlation as to what he said.
Yeah, because I will say, if you really push price, and many times I'll say, fine, I'll give you the price, but I'm going to set the terms, right? You want $100 million? I'll pay it over 100 years, right? So if you're a
I'll
good
pay it over
negotiator,
100 years.
right? So the question then is who gets to set the price, who gets to set the terms? They're both important, right?
Well, let's actually dive a little bit deeper in here, because we have individuals in here that have term sheets that they're creating for negotiation, and I want to talk directly to term sheets and how you can craft very strategically your buyout.
Right. In terms of
Well, no, like for example, you're the business owner. You're wanting to buy another company, but now how do you structure that to where the business owner on one side is now, having to pay out over the course of time?
Sure.
So how do you typically structure that?
Well, it's even a more fundamental question. The question is, you have to really understand what they want, the other side really wants, right? If you don't know what they really want, and a lot of times people get, they just want price or they want this, and you get in this like little tunnel vision of saying, I think this is what they want and I push my agenda, right? Versus really listening to them and saying, what do they really, really want? Sometimes they don't want the highest price. They want you to protect their legacy. Sometimes they want a second bite at the apple, saying, I'll pay you 80%, buy me 80%, and I want the 20% that I get from you. So if you really want to do the deal, right, you got to figure out what they really, really want. Or they want someone who they trust and they like. So it's not always about money. It's not always about the highest dollar value. So the question is, what do you offer? Because a term sheet, in a way, I build it as, there's a certain format to a term sheet, but ultimately I gear it towards them. Saying, I'm trying to fulfill, and I start with, I'm trying to fulfill what I heard from you, what you want, right? So I build it as a sales document, right? Not just the terms. I look at it as, how do I convince them that I am listening to you, I'm trying to get you what you want, and the term sheet is geared towards answering that question.
That's wise. So obviously you've started Socratics.ai. We've heard a little bit about it tonight, and I think that there's a massive disruption that's happening within our entire industries, or every industry for that matter, with AI. And can you explain a little bit about the deep problems that you're solving, though, with Socratics?
Sure.
And then also how you think that'll transform the marketplace?
Sure. Yeah. Again, Socratics, a lot of it is just literally the need and the problem that I had was, I'm a senior guy. I haven't been an analyst in years, and someone's asking me to create what they call a 3-statement model, which is an income statement, a balance sheet, and a cash flow statement, all linked together, right? Accountants don't build this. Investment bankers build it. But when I was a CFO, I would love that 3-statement model, right, built for my operating plan. So I sat there and I said, I always wished I had it. And there were a lot of SaaS platforms that provided it. It's this kind of modeling, but to customize it to you, it would take weeks of services work. I'm like, I don't have weeks. I got to get this plan out in a week. Can someone? So I literally hired somebody that I knew who was an investment banker and paid him a lot of money to build it for me, right? Because I forgot how to build it, right? And secondarily, later on, what I realized was, and I let that go, right? When I was a CFO, when I was off advising my friends' companies, I didn't have time, right? I don't have analysts working for me. I'm not at a big firm anymore, and I'm sitting there saying, I got to build a financial model that I have to send over to the buyers, investment bankers, and these guys, it's just me, right? And I'm sitting there, I can go, and this is before ChatGPT really being popular, right? So I got to bring out my old finance book. I got to Google, how do you link, how do you get the cash off the balance sheet? I forgot, right? And so the idea was, how do I not have to think about it? How can I just upload some base? So it goes back to the grunt work of taking accounting, financial stuff, and putting it in a formatted manner that easily comes out for small businesses or for investment bankers working with private companies, taking this dirty, messy stuff that my brother-in-law put together, right? Number one, being able to validate it and make sure it works, and put it together in a model that's what I call a modelable format, how an investment banker would look at it. How do I do that in 3 minutes? So that was our goal. We said, I want a 3-statement link model, taking whether a PDF or whatever it is, and we know the pain. If you're an analyst, you know what I'm talking about. It's grunt work pain to put it in an Excel spreadsheet and then fix it. How do I do it in 3 minutes? And we did it. And the technical risk of it, and we could have done it without really understanding the deterministic, which is to build out the rules, thousands of rules to do it. Because you can't just use AI. AI is not that smart yet to do that. And then throwing AI on top to finish a few little bit of it that can't be done with deterministically, and then having the human come in and answer some of those questions. So that's what we built. But fundamentally, the question is about, it goes back to, how do you start a company? I really wanted to do something that I really understood, I was an expert at, and number 2, that fit my needs, so I knew there was a pain point. And then, guys, 18 months, we did over 600 discovery calls, meaning we spent over 600 calls for 30 to 45 minutes with investment bankers, private equity guys, asking about their pain, of what we thought it was versus what they think it is, right? What's the problem for you? Because I could think all of this for me, but it's one perspective. And we did 600 of those, which I haven't heard anyone else do 600. But we spent time understanding from our customers, and that's how we started the company.
Well, we're excited about it, and I would say with those here in the room as well as online, what are you asking for as far as support, and how can we as a community support you tonight?
Well, I'll tell you what, because I think you guys are great. If you guys want to copy this, I'm willing to hand it out to you guys that try it out, right? So you guys let me know, and we'll give you access to it, so you guys can try it out.
Sweet.
And happy to do it. If you have friends, happy to do it. Have you guys try it out and give us some feedback on it, and that'd be great. Look, we have 30 investment banks, private equity funds, and private credit funds who are basically private lenders who use this a lot. They're using it right now, but I'm happy to have you guys try it out. It's still a bit buggy, to be honest with you. We're figuring it out, but no one else in the world has something like this right now. So we're happy to have it, and I'm willing to offer it to the Equicon network.
That's awesome. Well, everyone here is in process. That's what we are, no matter what stage of life we're at. I think we're always learning something. So we've learned a lot here tonight with Tim Eun, with the founder of Socratics.ai. And we're just going to take a bit of a break here, and if you guys need refreshments, if you need to go to the restroom, then we're going to come back with our panel discussion, and then we'll break for networking as well afterwards. So again, thank you so much for joining us on the panel today, and you guys feel free, have a break.
Thanks.
what it is. All right, go ahead.
Great.
All right, guys, welcome back. We are now live, and we're going to be doing a panel discussion. I'm going to let Tim Eun with Socratics.ai. He's going to be running this entire panel. So thanks a lot for staying with us. Thank you out there for staying with us today. Hopefully you guys like the food. Yeah, that was all my wife. She did all the shopping. But yeah, take it away, Tim. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, hey, so I'm sick of talking. You guys don't want to hear me talk anymore. I'm gonna let these two smart guys talk, and I'll ask questions. So we're very happy to have two awesome people here. To my left here is Peter Muncie, and I'll let Peter introduce himself here.
Sure, thanks, Tim. So I'm Peter Muncie. I work with the Riverside Company. We are a private equity firm, global. We have about 14 billion assets under management. We have 7 strategies of control buyout funds. We've got 3 North American funds. We've got the one that I'm in is called RCAF. That's north of 10 million of EBITDA businesses and largely tech-enabled business services and in specialty manufacturing distribution. I work more on the tech services side. Anything sub 10 of EBITDA goes to our microcap fund. Anything we both pass on goes to our value fund. We also have a venture strategy called Riverside Acceleration Capital. We have a European fund. We have an Australian fund. And we've got a strategic kind of minority investment fund as well. I've been with Riverside for 3 years and focused largely in tech and financial services.
And very importantly, he and I went to the same school.
Yes, University of Chicago. I was undergrad, you were both, but yeah.
Yeah, so happy to have Peter, thank you. And also my friend Omar here, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Apologies for those who heard this spiel earlier, but my name is Omar Parra. I'm an attorney with Friedberg Traurig, they're an international law firm. We have about 50 offices throughout the world, almost 3,000 attorneys. I'm based in the San Francisco office. We're a full service law firm, so any legal issue you may have, we can address. But I specifically focus on private equity M&A. Kind of my day-to-day are helping private equity funds, privately held companies and strategic investors with their corporate matters, mergers and acquisitions, strategic investments, and also kind of day-to-day corporate governance, corporate issues that come up with running your acquisition companies or any other issues that come up as far as formation of entities and whatnot. I've been an attorney for about 10 years. I started off my career doing litigation, and I quickly realized that I am not an adversarial person, and that's not for me. And I switched over to the transactional side of the legal field, and I've been doing deal work for about 7 years now. So I do think there was value in starting the litigation because I got to kind of appreciate where the risks are and where the pinpoints are and why people fight. And I've incorporated that into my deal practice. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Great. Well, why don't we first start off by just talking about where we are in the current market, right? Especially in the lower middle market space, where a lot of the places where we are right now. But it seems as if in the current market, with the current situation going on with tariffs and with China, and with the current rate environment and the bid asks and all of these things going on, tell us kind of your takeaways of where are we right now from a buy side perspective, from a major private equity fund, and also from one of the top law firms, and all the deal flow that you're seeing. Where are we right now in the market?
Sure. So from a legal perspective, we've definitely seen a slowdown in deal work. There is I think an uptick in legal activity. Frankly, we're equally as busy, but we're busy on different things. Where you've been working on, earlier we talked about term sheets a lot. So we're seeing a lot of involvement on term sheets. There's more negotiation on term sheets that you would normally see from a legal perspective. Typically, the term sheets are handled primarily at the business level, and then the business folks come to the lawyers and say, pay for the agreement, right? But now they're involving us at earlier stages, right? And hey, help us form term sheets, help us create, more creative deal structures, diligence, even pre-deal diligence, kind of your preliminary due diligence. There's an uptick in that. And so we're starting to see a lot of structure level activity that we don't normally see before. So I think that's a signal that the intent for deal work is strong, but deal work itself and the actual closing of deals is slowing down, and it's not quite as robust as it's been in past years.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think this year started off, I think people expected another year like 2021. And then there was the transition to power, then there was tariffs. Those two things were kind of like an ice and then a freeze on M&A. It's thawing. I think it probably really only resulted in like a few weeks of kind of me tapping my pencil, being like, where are all the companies? In the last month in particular, it started to come back, I'd say. I think on the tariff front, I think just having that 90-day pause or whatever it was, it gave enough of, it's all about volatility and uncertainty. I think what makes it tough is that if there's going to be change and volatility, and you don't know what's going to happen on the other side, it makes it really hard to transact. You can't diligence what's going to happen if tariffs go to infinity on China or whatever it is. But once that kind of pause got announced, I think, I don't know, people are maybe getting comfort with a little more just volatility now, and said, it's time, it's kind of time to transact, and we have to do it. So I think one thing that really dislocated the market was in 2021, money was free, debt was, interest rates were very low, and people, private equity firms bought a lot of companies at very, very high valuations. Now, you think of our investment horizon being about 3 to 5 years. We're now just at the back of that. There's a lot of things that we want to exit and pass it on, but we bought it at such a high valuation with much lower interest rates that it's kind of created this, this sticking situation. It seems to be unlocking though. It seems to be getting to the point where things need to trade, and it's kind of coming back.
Great. And so, are there any specific sectors or types of companies or different sizes of companies right now that you're seeing as the most active? What are you seeing, Peter?
Yeah, so I think I focus on tech and software. So a lot of things that generally aren't in services. Things that aren't really hit by tariffs. The other side of my business, we had a deal that we were looking at, on the manufacturing side, different members of my team, that just died. I mean, the second that the tariffs got announced, it was like, that's just not, it's untenable, right? Yeah. But I think within software and services, it wasn't going to be as directly impacted by tariffs. And then I think like lower middle market, again, we are more starting around 10 of EBITDA. Those companies are always kind of active. They your huge mergers and acquisitions aren't going to maybe go through. They're going to get blocked, or they're going to be more upper range. But in kind of the lower middle market, founder sellers, smaller fund sellers, I think that's kind of always a little more active. There's frankly more companies and more activity.
Yeah. In my practice, a little bit more industry agnostic. We handle a variety of different sectors and industries, but I think where we continue to see a strong level of deals is in the healthcare space, particularly like healthcare facilities, rehab facilities. Those don't seem to be as affected as much. I mean, there are nuances, and I'm sure we can talk about that with like government contracts and whatnot that are a little uncertain right now, but we're seeing still a lot of M&A activities in that healthcare space. And I think conversely, where we're seeing another kind of industry that we've been seeing a lot of activity in is kind of like heavy industrial space. So a lot of like oil and gas, tanks and that kind of thing. Production of those, and lately I've become a helicopter expert. My last 3 deals have been acquisition of helicopter companies, primarily engaged in firefighting and heavy construction, heavy industrial. So our clients have been acquiring helicopter companies across the world that are focused on firefighting because fire seasons are getting longer, they're getting stronger, and they're happening throughout all parts of the world, not just California.
Interesting. Let's dig in a little deeper here. As you guys see tons of term sheets, right? You guys see term sheets. You guys negotiate a lot of deals. Is there anything specific with regard to either regulatory or deal terms? As you talked a little bit about, now people are getting into things like the MAE, things like that. What specifically are you seeing right there that's a little bit different right now with regard to what you people are trying to insert into these? Because they usually come in waves, right? Well, what are they inserting in? What are they actually bringing up in terms of risks, and what are they inserting into the contract?
Yeah, so from my side, I think we're seeing a lot of more creative structuring, right? So you're seeing, before in a typical transaction, you would have a purchase price, obviously some sort of mechanism to adjust the purchase price, post-closing for a variety of reasons. Sometimes you would see earnouts, but if you did, there'd be nominal, maybe, or even like 20% or less of a transaction purchase price. And now you're kind of seeing the reverse. Now you're seeing very low purchase prices with high earnouts that are contingent on, financial performances. Sometimes they're contingent on regulatory approval. You're starting to see negotiations from the buy side on kind of reverse termination fees. So where if the deal gets blocked for regulatory reasons, the seller gets some money back, right? Or gets kind of some sort of fee from the buyer. So you're seeing reverse termination fees. You're seeing a lot of negotiation on definitions of what a material adverse effect is. That definition has been pretty set in stone for the 10 years that I've been practicing, but now you're starting to see carve-outs, right? Now you're starting to see that pandemics are being excluded, or you're seeing interest rate shocks being kind of excluded, and kind of narrowing those exceptions that allow those carve-outs, and that's a big focus of negotiations that we've been seeing from a legal front that typically we wouldn't have been negotiated even a year ago.
Yeah, I think what you said on earnouts is part of it. I think especially in markets when the bid-ask spread is wide, earnouts is kind of the best way to bridge that gap. You basically just make say acquire the business for $100 million, and then $20 million if you hit your numbers next year. It's not that wide. That's just an example, but I think that's, I'd say, still the best mechanism we have to kind of close that gap. I mean, the models though also, you run into earnouts when you have a model that is just so aspirational. When they say what they're going to hit is just such a high number, and it's like, okay, great, if you get that, we'll pay you for it. But so I think there's a few different ways you can that can come about. But I think earnouts are probably here to stay for a little bit. Looking at something right now where it's just a good way to protect your downside, and you're not getting in at too high of a multiple. And again, if they hit the target, great, you'll get paid. But it does help kind of bridge that gap.
Right. So there's two ways that people try to get higher prices, right? One is they're trying to negotiate the multiple, right? The multiple on your EBITDA and your sales, number one. And number two, you try to jack up the growth rate, right? And again, you use things like that, but buyers hate that earnout. They want the money up front, right? And so the question right now is, are you seeing people starting to be more rational on sort of the growth outlook that they're putting in terms of in front of you?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think in a lot of the business I look at, it'll be, it's not going to grow 50% in a year, right? It's we're looking at something that's going to go like 15%, and by this time of the year, it's what, June? They'll have 3-4 months of financial actuals. They'll have a backlog that speaks for 90% of the rest of the year, and then they'll have the rest of the year. So I think you got like businesses like that, services, long kind of contracts and backlog. It's pretty rational because it'd be hard to fake it.
Right.
But no, I think generally it started to kind of come down to rationality. I think like the 2021, put a hockey stick on the page days are over.
So I'm going to ask this from a legal and also from the business side. So how are companies dealing with the issues of, again, you addressed it a little bit in terms of earnouts and so on and MAE type stuff, but how do you deal with companies that are dealing with, call it, whether it's tariffs or whether it's supply chain risks? Like how does a buyer and seller deal with that in terms of how they discuss it between transactions, right? Saying, hey, even if you're a small company in the e-commerce space, you're dealing with China risk, right? You're dealing with supply chain risk. And even if you're not directly dealing with China or other places, you're dealing with the manufacturer in between who needs this may need critical minerals that come from there or those type of things. So how are they talking about that, and how is this coming up in each transactional conversation you're talking about?
Yeah, so from a legal perspective, this is a little bit outside my world, but what we're seeing is that the more sort of sophisticated buyers are, they can focus on alternative pipelines. So we're seeing a lot of alternatives to China, like Singapore, for example, is kind of one that, they know that if they can source differently or even work with Chinese companies to outsource through Singapore, and then they can, get confident about that. Those deals are still kind of proceeding on pace. With other folks that don't have that kind of bandwidth or that breadth of pipeline type resources, we're seeing pauses. We're just frankly seeing deals go on pause or trying to come up with creative solutions like, earnout type incentives for no disruption in pipelines and no disruption in customers. If vendors and suppliers and whatnot aren't affected, then there's a multiple of an earnout that gets paid or something like that. So there's almost incentivizing certainty. But it's
Never seen that.
We're in a new world in that. So
Wow.
we're all kind of trying to go with it and learn as we go.
You get rewarded if your business works as it's supposed to.
Or there's no disruption with your suppliers, right? So if 6 months
Interesting.
out, your main supplier hasn't changed the terms, or you're not paying 3 times what you were paying before,
Right.
or the target was paying, I should say, then there's financial incentives there for the seller.
Okay.
Stuff that's frankly outside of both the buyer and the seller's control is being incentivized, and that's never happened in real work.
And I know you're in the tech and services side, but just speaking for friends
Yeah.
who are in other sectors that may be more industrial or more supply chain related, what are you seeing from them and from other folks, the bankers that you work with? And you were a former investment banker. How are they dealing with this? How are those conversations happening from a business side, and how are people talking about it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think, like you said, I spend a lot less time in this part of the world, or with companies that are really directly impacted. I mean, I think it just comes down to diligence. I mean, ultimately, you need to do, your work, and if you look at a company that has a supply chain that's going to be affected, you need to find that, right? I think kind of step one is to identify if this even applies, and if that's the case, I mean, yeah, you could be anywhere from on pause to finding an alternative route. One thing that I'd be kind of curious to see is it hasn't really hit the software supply chain too much, right? Like a lot of the companies I work with are systems integrators. They're integrators for like Splunk or others. It doesn't really seem to impact that world much at all. But I don't know. Feasibly it could.
Yeah. Well, let me switch to what we had talked about a little bit. With regard to a lot of deals with HSR, you can discuss what HSR is and what CFIUS is, and talk a little bit about how that's impacting the deals these days.
So these are regulatory aspects of the deal, and admittedly I'm not a specialist in these, but I know enough to be dangerous, I suppose. HSR is called the Hart-Scott-Rodino Act. It's an antitrust law that is used by the FTC to kind of regulate deal work. And you might hear like was it JetBlue was trying to buy Southwest or something like that, and that got blocked. That's all HSR antitrust stuff. There's a threshold that changes. It gets set every year. I think this year is at $140 million or something like that. So if the transaction if the value of the transaction is $140 million or more, or if there's certain other host of criteria that we don't want to get into here now, but it becomes what's called a reportable transaction, and that means you have to let the federal government know that hey, we're planning on doing this deal, and then the federal government has 30 or 45 days to either say nothing, and if they say nothing, then you can close your deal. Or if they say something, then you start having to figure out responses and trying to get the government comfortable that you're not creating a monopoly. In prior administrations, for example, the Biden administration, every deal was getting scrutinized. Right. So if you were a reportable deal, you were almost certain under the Biden administration that you were going to get a response from the federal government saying, "Tell me more about your deal." Right, and that's a very expensive process. The application filing fees are tied to a percentage of the deal, so they can get in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, just to respond to the government, right? So this is a very expensive process, and can ultimately kill your deal, and folks invest a lot of money in, and that's why we're starting to see reverse termination.
So the takeaway is more deals are getting scrutinized for antitrust, right? There's a lot more focus from the administrations, the Biden and the Trump administration, of saying, hey, we want to protect the small guy against the big guy, right? So that's a lot. And so if you're involved in those large, the $114 million threshold is not a high threshold. That's a fairly, in the big scheme of things, that's a pretty low threshold. So almost any middle market deal can get reviewed and said, are prices going to go up on consumers, or are you going to increase competition or lower competition because of what you're doing, right? So number one, let's just be very clear. That's the one takeaway. Talk to me about CFIUS.
Yeah, so CFIUS is called the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. It's a separate U.S. regulatory agency that focuses on foreign investment in the United States. So deals that are reportable or triggered if a foreign entity is buying like a majority share in a U.S. company. Or there's certain sectors like semiconductors and chips that
AI
that automatically trigger investment. If there's foreign investment in an American company that's handling those, it's almost always going to get trigger CFIUS.
Yeah.
CFIUS has a very similar process to HSR, where if you're a reportable transaction, you are encouraged to voluntarily submit a report and notify CFIUS of the deal.
Yep.
And nowadays, we are actually advising against, or we are advising for voluntary disclosure.
Yes.
Just because we're saying, hey, you know what, let's get this out of the way now, let's get this process going, let's just let the feds know about this and get that process underway. But we are seeing a lot more attention to stuff like that, especially on cross-border deals, or frankly, all cross-border deals.
So with regard to the lower middle market and the Silicon Valley space, just the takeaway from that is, number one, is if you're in very specific fields, that the hot fields of AI, you're going to get scrutinized, and your lawyer's going to tell you to report it, number one. Number two is, what happens, even friendly nations to the United States, so call it not even China, if you're in Japan or Korea or Germany, right, this stuff triggers it. So what happens is, because it's reported, a lot of investors from those countries who would invest in Silicon Valley, in the growth equity of these companies, have pulled back because of these requirements, because they're more concerned about it. So just FYI, that leads to less investment in the United States. Just FYI, that is what we're talking about, right?
And it's also important to note that countries have reciprocal laws.
Yep.
Right. So I mentioned helicopter acquisitions. We acquired a company that had helicopter operations in Italy. Italy has what's called the golden hour rule, which is very similar to CFIUS. And because those firefighting contracts are with like NATO and the government agencies there, you have American money handling into kind of Italian operations, and they have the same thing. So you have to report, file with Italian agencies as well. And even globally, obviously that has nothing to do with U.S. politics. They're also scrutinizing. So we're seeing, government scrutiny across all countries, not just the U.S.
Sure. We're going to address two more things before we end this. So we've addressed the issue of regulatory, right? The change in regulatory, tariffs, supply chains, right? And now we're going to go to debt, right? Because a lot of the buyers that you're dealing with at the lower market are being acquired by private equity funds, and leverage or borrowing from banks is a big issue, because that increases the price that they're willing to pay for you guys, right? So let's go to, and the rates are much higher than they were 3-4 years ago. The absolute rates are significantly higher. Talk to me about how that is impacting deal flow and deal execution.
So that's probably been the biggest single, that's probably been the biggest single impactor over the last few years. So when, on the new deal front, 2021, money's free, interest rates are functionally zero. Everyone levered up because you can buy, and banks were wanting to lend. So it's when you structure kind of your debt on these deals, it's typically like 6 times leverage, right? So it's like say we're buying a company for 12 times EBITDA, 6 times of that is going to be debt. When that debt's free, when there's really no interest on it, great. It's just more money. People can buy bigger companies.
Prices are higher.
Yeah, higher valuations too. What then happened? This was the fastest rate hike cycle since what? This was only like 3.
Probably the 60s and
Yeah.
probably the 70s, right?
Yeah, probably. And what that did though, and it caught us all by surprise, was that you have a few metrics you look at with your debt. It's first is just your total net leverage. This is how much debt do you have to how much EBITDA do you have.
Yep.
You can typically cap that out around 6x. Your covenants are probably going to, so you start getting in trouble with the banks if you get into like the 8-9 zone.
Yep.
That one was actually fine. Those were generally, the one that was not fine was the fixed charge coverage ratio. Yep. This was, the industry did it kind of in tandem, but I think this was one of the biggest things that I learned in a.
Can you explain what fixed charge?
Yeah, so fixed charge is basically your debt service on top of your EBITDA. So like if you've got $10 million in interest a year, and
1/3
amortizations in there, so you have $10 million of debt service in a year,
1/3.
and then you've got $10 million of EBITDA, your kind of fixed charge coverage ratio is going to be 1. You can cover exactly your interest costs.
Like Zelle?
When we basically weren't paying interest on debt, we didn't even look at that. I was underwriting deals without even paying mind what the fixed charge coverage was. So then when interest rates went up, basically 10%, that put a number of our portfolio companies just in a jam, because we weren't underwriting the deal that way, and the whole market did it. So that was actually, so 2021 was peak. We all bought companies with a lot of debt that was cheap. That debt increased, and a lot of private equity firms just need to turn their portfolio for a bit. I'd say I'm on the other side of it now, but there's a solid 12, 18 months where it was just liquidity crisis everywhere. Every company is running out of money because you've got any company you have. Imagine you have you're making $1 million a year, and then all of a sudden you've got $2 million of interest to pay. The money just disappeared. So that really slowed down. That also slowed down M&A because you could do add-ons, sure, you could do. Still, people are buying platforms, but the cash flow profile changed materially. Now, I mean, rates are on the 5-ish zone. They've been stable. I mean, hopefully they stay there. Hopefully they start to track back down. This feels more normalized though, and I think this is probably like a more like market environment. When money was at kind of 0%, that wasn't going to last forever.
Yep.
A lot of people bought a lot of companies and were able to do that, but now it's stable though. I mean, I think this is like the new normal.
So people are getting used to it.
I
Right?
think people have gotten used to it. Yeah.
The last thing I'll talk about is a positive, right? So with regard to AI, so everyone's talking AI, and that is an upside for disrupting current businesses and the existing business software and method. Talk to me how you guys think about AI and how that helps with regard to thinking about evaluation in a company, or you think about adding the benefits of that.
Mm-hmm.
If a company, so one company is saying, hey, I'm going to add AI and add another $1 million in EBITDA over the next 3-4 years by automation. So talk to me a little bit about that.
So it's interesting. I think really we're going through that now and figuring out what that means. I think especially working in a lot of services businesses,
Yep.
that is an area that is very top of mind because people doing think of like an MSP where it's just like a help desk or something like that's a very automatable.
Yep.
But where the value ultimately accrues remains to be seen,
Yep.
right? Because if you take a services business and the margin goes from 50% to 60% because you're able to automate a lot, well, eventually do you need to lower your price because
Mhm.
the customers kind of just recognize you're passing on kind of this efficiency to them
Mhm.
and the margins are going up.
Right.
So that's happening now. Like I've seen, I think kind of the first question, one of the main questions on AI asked during diligence is just all we can look at is how the companies are themselves using it, especially in the service providers. Like an area that I look at is basically these companies that are helping other companies implement AI. You can look at what they're doing themselves, kind of eating their own dog food. You can see what gains they get, but it still remains to be seen. I think where who the value ultimately accrues to. The AI company, sure, but who it really accrues to.
Good point. That's a great point. All right. Well, we went pretty deep. We went talking at a high level, the macro. We get all the way down to the micro. Try to get all the way down to the point of thinking about financial models and how you value things and the contract itself. So with that, we're gonna stop here because I'm gonna give you guys a chance to ask some questions, right? Because some of this may be sort of not your area, but we want to open it up. Now we have some experts from the financial side, from the legal side, term sheet side. So we're going to open up to you guys for questions, and we'll take some questions. Anyone have any specific questions?
Anybody? Term sheets?
Yep.
Investments? No?
So you said you're not sure where the AI takes it. Obviously, with the service providers, AI can make a huge difference. Is that affecting what you buy, how you buy? You're looking at what AI is able to take out of company costs. Is that affecting your forward buying process?
Yes, I absolutely. I think for probably the last 12 months. I think Tim said it earlier. Like AI is real now. I think people understand that even if they don't get it, it's coming and it's automating things quickly. So, yeah, I mean, I think when I'm looking at a business and I see, okay, you've got, frankly, it's a service delivery business and you've got 50 people doing, like a help desk kind of function. So something like that is, well, can that exact same thing be done, with less people? I think that's very much a consideration. I like to look at it more though on the upside, on kind of how it could be used to help the company grow faster. I think a lot of, we have a lot of data in our company. That one of my companies is an HVAC and plumbing business, and frankly, they're actually one of the most AI forward in our portfolio. And what they've done, and it's funny, it's not even generative AI. It's just kind of regular machine learning. They've made like a predictive model based on the weather to schedule their jobs, So basically, about 2 weeks out, and this is a
That's good.
multi-site. We've got, it's mostly in Pacific Northwest and in Texas, but you've got this model that basically predicts our entire technicians' next 2 weeks, and it works. And that is, and you think we acquire another company, we roll them into our system. That's efficiency gain there. So we're looking for more opportunities like that. I would say, but it's very top of mind.
I think one of the things we're seeing is there was an interesting quote on LinkedIn where one of the investors said, CFOs aren't going to get fired. CFOs who don't use AI are going to get fired. Right? AI can't solve all the problems right now, but your marketing staff who are writing a bunch of emails better start using ChatGPT to write a better email faster, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, I think that's going to have an impact of due diligence. We'll probably hit the due diligence side, right?
The diligence has changed a lot. I mean, if you've used deep research or any of those tools, we pay, it's embarrassing to say, we pay consultants $600,000 to do a market study. They'll spend 3 weeks going out calling a bunch of people in the industry. The deep research report is basically better than what they deliver, and so we use that actively now. I mean, I'd say ChatGPT is up on one of my screens all day long, and it's just this new interface that I'm really pushing on kind of the associates too to kind of use guys, this is any question you have, go here first. If you don't know what HSR is, ChatGPT will tell you. So you kind of have infinite knowledge now, but using it pretty, you can upload documents, upload transcripts, get summaries from ChatGPT of kind of long text documents. I think there's a lot we're doing now on the diligence front.
Now let me ask this: we're in the legal field. It's taken over here. Tell me what you guys are doing with AI on the legal side.
Yeah, so what's that?
You guys use Harvey?
No, but so AI has existed in some form or another in the legal world for many years. Right. Particularly with e-discovery, I think we were talking about that earlier. For the litigation matters, you upload a bunch of documents, you can make them readable and search and whatnot, and handle for stuff like that. On the more transactional side, to be frank, law firms are kind of behind the industry when it comes to AI, and part of it is because we're regulated, right? So by the Bar Association and whatnot, and of course attorney-client privilege. Right, so we can't just upload a document to ChatGPT that's public, because that would breach, confidentiality. So we have to use, our law firm has their own internal ChatGPT. And if I can be frank, it's terrible. So I'd rather not use it. But we are seeing it with stuff like Contract Companion on Microsoft Word, right? Because we delete one section, and now section 3.4. Is now 3.3, but there's references to 3.4 out there, and stuff like that gets picked up. But as far as legal concepts, I think for the legal world, it's going to take us some time, because we got to figure out how exactly to do it without breaching privilege, to comply with ABA rules and all the ethic rules that lawyers are bound by. But it is you do.
But it's coming, right?
It's coming. It's definitely coming. It's in the works, and clients are always asking us to be more efficient, and certainly AI can read a contract a lot faster than we can. But there's parameters that have to be respected. It's in the works.
So ChatGPT is up every day on the right side of my double screen, and my favorite word is TLDR. Too long, didn't read. Give me a summary.
And to be honest, lawyers, I think oftentimes we have a hard time communicating legal concepts or to a person who's not an attorney, and I do use ChatGPT for that. Right. So I'll be like, help me explain this waterfall.
Exactly.
In simple terms. And ChatGPT does a great job of explaining it to a 5-year-old, right? That kind of thing. So.
Any other questions? Yes.
Some companies want to expand here in US, the business operations, so they're looking for to do an IPO here. Do you also see any impact on the recent conditions on those kind of things?
For companies that want to expand to the U.S.?
Come to U.S. markets and launch their products in the U.S. and do an IPO.
So it's a good question. Honestly, we typically go the other way just because we're based here. I think I probably spent more time thinking about how to acquire a company in Canada and how to bring our company international. So honestly, I actually don't have a good answer for you because all of our platforms are in North America first, and then we may go abroad. So I actually don't have a good answer for you.
Well, why don't we have some more questions? We'll have a little time afterwards. You can ask them individually as well. So we'll be here for a little bit. Great.
Yeah, just give them a round
Thank
of
you.
applause. Thanks a lot, guys,
Thank you.
for your time.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, great work. Yeah, great work. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good job.
Well, we know the value of a network, and we know the value of building relationships and just really having an open environment, and that's what we just want to provide for you guys tonight for the rest of your time here. Before we do so, we're definitely going to talk a little bit about the Acquisition IQ Network. Just to recap it real quick. Number one, we have an online monthly meetings where we're nearing 100 members now, so we're excited about that, which creates more value within the network. And within the network right now, we have multifamily investment opportunities, off-market deal flow, investors that have already exited their companies, but then we also have small business owners that are looking to buy their next bolt-on or platform. Those are terms that if you want to know more about, they'll talk to you about. But other, roll-up strategies, how to do a multiple arbitrage, but also just, maybe just acquiring your first company. So those are some individuals that we have a part of the group. If anyone is interested, right now we do have, it's $1,499. It's a one-time cost, and you guys are lifetime members as a part of our group. So there's no additional add-ons to that. It's just a one-time cost. But also with that, you guys receive a free VIP ticket to the main conference, where I would suspect, based on our 15-city tour, we'll have 400 plus people there, and where, again, it's experience, but it's also education, just like what we had today. And when you have a full day of a conference, we're able to customize the tables, because how we do this in Salt Lake is we do circle tables, where you guys will meet with 8 other people around your table, and we customize each table to meet your specific need as the individual. So it's very curated. I wouldn't suspect we do that with a 1,000-person conference, but who knows? We may be able to pull it off. But anyway, if you are interested, these little things, they have an application QR code right on the back, and we'll take a look at what you guys have and see if you're a part. But other than that, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We know your time is valuable, so feel free to network with others in the room and enjoy.